So we're talking with Gary Cieradkowski, who is here at SABR 50, promoting his new book. And Gary's an old friend, and it's nice to have a chance to catch up and chat. So tell us about this latest one, Gary.
Well, this is kind of building on the first book that I did, which was The League of Outsider Baseball, which was a hardcover book. This is a softcover book, and I was able to do, this is the second edition of it, and I was able to do a lot of things that I couldn't do in my first book. So, of course, I have the illustrations that I usually do.
But these are based on baseball cards that you do, which is a whole other kettle of fish.
Yeah, I put most of my illustrations in a baseball card format that I developed. So I also write I do the research and do the writing for each story. This one is on Eddie Matthews, his season with the Atlanta Crackers in 1950. And there's a famous story about the outfield wall at the stadium in Atlanta didn't have an outfield wall. There was just a big magnolia tree next to the scoreboard. So there's a story that he was one of the only person to hit a ball into the magnolia tree on the fly. And in Atlanta, there's all these legends that people tell. I was there, the ball hit the tree and a bunch of kids fell out of it. It's all kinds of crazy stories like that. So I wanted to tell that story, and I couldn't find the straight dope on what actually happened because it just became legend. So I couldn't even find out what the dimensions of the ballpark was. So one thing I could tell that story in my previous book, but because of this format that I did, I'm able to tell the story, and then, sorry about that.
At length.
Yes, but I'm also able to do sidebars. I love sidebars. So this is the whole story I did about I did a diagram, I found the dimensions of the old stadium, Ponce de Leon Stadium in Atlanta, and then actually found the game where the home run actually happened, and then tracked the ball and figured out how far it actually went.
Now, just as a reminder, when you talk about Atlanta, you're talking about Atlanta when it was a minor league team.
Correct.
Not like when the Braves moved there from Milwaukee in the 60s.
Yes.
This is because everybody, a lot of people can't even fathom of Atlanta as a minor league city.
Exactly. And the stadium is long gone, but the magnolia tree is still there with a little plaque on it. So I was able to do little sidebar things like that, which I always find very fascinating. This next article is on Jerry Lewis, and he was a huge baseball fan and actually played ball with the Giants, the Houston Astros, and the Los Angeles Dodgers in exhibition games. So this is a story I tell about his love of baseball over the years. And it's probably one of the most divisive stories I've ever written.
Really?
Either people love Jerry Lewis or they can't stand his movies.
So this is like, it's hard enough just condensing everything in a card format size, but I can't imagine how much time it takes to do the artwork, do the baseball card, and then go into the depth that you do with the stories.
Actually, the artwork is probably for me as an artist, it's the easiest part. The hardest part actually is condensing down when I do the backs of the cards to take all this stuff that I research, and I love researching things and finding the minutia of things, and condensing all that down into, I don't know how many words that is, 200 words or something like that. That's the really tough part. But sorry. I was gonna say, and then again, like with this story with Jerry Lewis, I found that he was part of the Hollywood Entertainment League back in the 50s and 60s. And it was all the Hollywood stars at the time had teams or played on teams. And they were sponsored by nightclubs and restaurants all over Los Angeles. So I went, and I always found this really interesting, just like all the different teams. Like, I'm a big James Garner fan because I love the Rockford Files. And he was a huge baseball fan and a big competitor. His brother actually played minor league ball. But he had his own team called Garner's Gems.
This is somewhat, not much more serious, I believe, than like when you see the celebrity softball games and the All-Star game. Some of those, I was surprised when I watched the last one. Some of them I don't even know who these people are, but Bryan Cranston was pretty good, and so J.K. Simmons were pretty good. And you realize, look, these people were young ones, and they probably, before they became in their profession, they were playing some sort of sports for the most part.
Yeah.
So fascinating stuff. Now, the subjects you have for these are both well-known players, but presented in events that were not well-known, or a lot of players who no one probably, unless you're a really hardcore fan, have heard of, like Jimmy Horio.
Yeah. He was born in Hawaii to Japanese immigrant parents, and he wanted to be the first Japanese American baseball player in the major leagues. Didn't make it. He made it as far as AAA in the 1930s, but when he realized he just wasn't getting the breaks that he wanted, he took a great risk, and in 1934 there was a major league tour of Japan, and Jimmy Horia found out about it, and he paid his own way to Japan to try to get on the American team. It was Major League All-Stars, so there was no room for Jimmy Horia, but the Japanese national team that was put together brought him on because he was an American and he had played minor league ball in the United States. So he became part of what eventually became the Tokyo Giants, the modern New York Yankees of Japan. But the next year he went on tour. The Tokyo Giants went to America and toured in the spring and summer of 1935, and Jimmy Horia was one of the stars of that team.
That's funny. You would have thought that the Americans would have used him if only for the fact that he was Japanese and could probably help them
translate and things like that. Yeah, but that tour was so popular. They had their own handlers. The Yomiuri Shimbun, I think that's the name of the paper in Tokyo that sponsored the American tour. They had all that stuff handled for them.
I noticed yesterday we went to the game between the Red Sox and the Orioles at Camden Yards, and at one point the Red Sox brought in a Japanese pitcher, and when they went to have a conference on the mound, a translator came along with them, and they didn't used to allow that, which made things a lot more difficult. It's good to see that they became more enlightened about that and realized with all the communication necessary, you need to have a non-uniform personnel besides a trainer being able to come out on the field. So this is your second book. I imagine there's a third one coming.
Yeah, hopefully I'll have it out by, I want to say before around the World Series time. We're probably closer to Christmas.
And a fourth and a fifth, I'm
sure.
I got
I'm
enough. Sure there's no shortage of stories.
No, I got enough to fill 3 or 4 more books. So.
And if people want to find more about you online, where do they go?
StudioGaryC.com.
All right, Gary, thanks very much. Hope you're enjoying the convention here, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Thanks.